You know, when you're not sure where your next meal is going to come from, when you can't meet the eyes of the ones who look up to you because you can't provide for them, it's hard not to worry. Sometimes life gets overwhelming. We feel like we're drowning in the worries of life. Everywhere we turn, it seems like there's this huge wall in front of us. And we wonder if we'll ever get a break. It's hard not to worry. When it seems your life is getting worse, when it seems like you've been weeping the entire night and yet your joy has not come, it's hard not to worry. When you can't meet your basic needs of shelter, food, and clothing, but yet the Bible said, don't worry about your everyday life. Whether you have enough to eat or drink or enough clothes to wear, if I take care of the birds who cannot plant or harvest food, I will take care of you. You're more valuable to me than them. If I dress the lilies with beauty and splendor, why wouldn't I dress you? God said, if all creation can trust me for survival, then so can you. Despite how hard life may be right now, God says not to worry. He says, I've got it. I'm with you. I'll never leave you or forsake you. I'm always by your side. I just need you to trust me. So worry no more. God is for you. God is with you, and He is in you. You can never fail. The storms could never swallow you. You can never be defeated. God is with you, and He hasn't abandoned you. Your darkest moments when it seems like you're alone, I need you to remember that God is with you. In and out of every season, He is with you, and He will never leave you. When you've done all you can and you don't know what else to do, simply worship. When you've exhausted your strength and there's nowhere else to turn, worship. When the mountains look too strong for you to move, worship. When you've given everything, there's nothing more to give, worship. Because worrying only takes years from your lives. Worrying does nothing for you. It only drives you to make hasty decisions and costly mistakes. It paralyzes you. It holds you down. No one has ever solved a problem through worry, but worship can. Worship is acknowledging that you have no strength of your own. Worship is acknowledging that if God doesn't come through, no one else can. Worship is taking the burdens off yourself and handing them over to God. Worship is acknowledging that God can do anything. Worship is believing the God who led the Israelites to their promised land despite how long it took them. Worship is believing in the God who restored everything that Job had. Worship is believing in the God who changed Jacob's story and gave him a new name. Worship is believing the God who gave Hannah a child after years of waiting. Worship is believing in the God who turned a shepherd boy into a king who would rule over nations. Worship is a belief in a God who can do anything. Worship is a belief that the same God is with you. In Psalm 23, David says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil because I know you are with me. When God is with you, it makes all the difference. When God's hand is on your life, you can be sure that your victory is secure. It doesn't matter what things look like right now. You might be in the valley of the shadow of death now, but even then, don't worry, God is with you. Nothing can harm you. God desires you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. God wants to see your seed sorted too. God wants to see you happy, bubbling with life, maybe even more than you desire. God wants you blessed so that you can be a blessing to many nations and others. You need to know that whatever you may be going through right now is not the end. Whatever mountains you're facing right now are only temporary. They won't last. How do I know? Because Abraham and Sarah were only barren for a moment. It seemed like the promise would never come to pass. But it did. While the Israelites were being oppressed in Egypt, it felt like the end. They spent their days weeping and calling out to God for help. Even the journey of rescue from Egypt was hard, but still, God came through. It was only temporary. Job wanted to kill himself. He lost everything and seemed like he had reached the end of the road, like he had fallen out of favor with God. What you must know is that every great man must go through fire. The Bible said that all the while Jacob was suffering, tribulations were only refining his character. Trials and tribulations will test you. They will test your belief. In your weakest moments, you discover what you've really made of. Who you genuinely consider as your everything. God gave Abraham one thing he desired and then asked him to sacrifice it. Yet, Abraham agreed because his character had been redefined. The storms he had been through had strengthened his faith. They had shown him that God can do anything. If he did it before, then he could replicate it. When Joseph, after being blessed by God, got the opportunity to avenge all that had been done to him, he chose to forgive instead. Because the pain had refined his character, the suffering had produced in him love, patience, forgiveness, and wisdom. Find the purpose in your pain. Let the fire refine you. Find your worship even in your hardest moments. Some of the most beautiful psalms are written when David was going through the hardest seasons of his life. Still, he would always declare that his absolute trust was in God. Still, David was sure of the heritage that he had in God. He was sure that goodness and mercy would follow him all the days of his life. And I know that your case isn't any different. If your pain should show anything, it should be your bigger than what you're going through. God is bigger than the mountains that surround you. Don't waste the period dwelling in your worry and anxiety. If you're going through a season of lack, worship God as a provider, because what you're going through doesn't change who He is. And you know that if He has come through before, then He can come through again. If you're in a season where you're lost everything, worship God as a restorer. If He restored everything that Job had in multiple folds, He can do the same for you. He can fill your heart with love again. He can get you singing again. He can heal your heart and take away your pain. Hey! Switch from worry to worship today. What gets the devil angry is when you don't react as he thinks you should. He knows that every second you spend in worry is time you could spend worshiping. It's time you could spend listening to God and hearing from Him. But He doesn't want that. He'd rather you spend it with Him instead. Worrying, complaining, angry, anxious. Switch to worship today and see things fall in place. How is it that walls of Jericho came down with praise? Sometimes those walls will come down without a shout of praise. They won't come down till you acknowledge that only God can bring them down. The walls will come down till you declare that you believe God will come through. They won't come down till you esteem God higher than your pain. Hey, your refusal to worry is not a denial of your problems you're facing. Rather, it's an acknowledgement of the fact that you've done all you can, and now you're handing it over to the one who can help you. That's what worship is. An acknowledgement of your frailty, of our humanity. Worship is our acknowledgement that God is with us, that we aren't alone, that we recognize the fire, but we know that we won't be burned. So worship when you don't feel like it. Worship when you think the battle is getting hotter. Worship when everyone around you calls you stupid and watch God turn everything around. Your worrying can't do that, but God can. So worship, not worry.